It's someone who has been lied to for a long time and then discovers the truth. Sadly, I never even thought that my wife might be cheating on me. Was I really that unaware? It's difficult to see things clearly when everyone seems to be against you and hiding a terrible secret. Darn it. Finally, I have the house to myself, the game on the big TV, 2 cold drinks finished, and more waiting in the mini cooler next to my comfy chair. And now, someone's calling. I hope it's not one of those annoying sales calls or a robot call. If it is, they're going to hear an earful. It was about 8 p.m. on a Wednesday night. My wife, Tracy, usually worked late on Wednesdays, so I always made plans for a night of relaxation or entertainment. Tonight was meant for staying in. I had polished off a medium meats pizza from Papa John's earlier with a couple of beers, then settled in to watch the Cubs game while enjoying a few more Coronas. I had 2 more Coronas chilling in the cooler beside me and another 6 in the fridge in the kitchen. It promised to be a great night. Tracy would typically arrive around 10, take a quick shower, and then we'd be snuggled up by 11. Wednesday nights were peaceful at the Avondales. However, this phone call was sure to disrupt my tranquility. I could just feel it. Despite that, I answered, knowing my responsibility. It was Shell Tremaine, the wife of Tracy's boss, Jack, who called. She sounded really upset. Jack had a heart attack while working with Tracy, my wife, who called 911. The paramedics took him to the hospital in critical condition. Shell told me Tracy went with Jack in the ambulance and would need a ride home later because she planned to stay with him as long as needed. I promised Shell I would go and wish Jack a speedy recovery. Tracy had worked for Jack for 22 years since she graduated from college. She started at his software company and worked her way up, becoming his trusted helper. They were very close, almost like family. When Tracy started working for Jack, we were already together. We spent time with their family over the years. Tracy always spoke highly of Jack, saying he was a great boss who paid her well. Jack, a French national, is a decade older than both Tracy and me, currently at the age of 55. He maintains a fit physique through regular exercise and exudes charisma, often commanding attention in social settings where both men and women are drawn to him. Despite our belief in a higher plan for everyone regardless of personal care, I was taken aback by Jack's sudden heart attack. Arriving at the hospital, I parked in the visitor's lot adjacent to the emergency room and inquired about Jack at the front desk, explaining that I was the spouse of the woman who had accompanied him and that I was also searching for her. While speaking with the nurse, I noticed a pair of EMTs nearby, one of whom made a cryptic remark about a cuck, leaving me puzzled but ultimately focused on finding Tracy. Shortly afterward, Tracy and Shell emerged from a room, visibly upset, and we shared a tearful embrace as Tracy delivered the devastating news of Jack passing due to a massive heart attack. I stood in shock, unable to speak, as the 3 of us embraced tightly in the hallway, both women crying heavily. Shell, also a citizen of France, had been married to Jack for 35 years. They tied the knot at the age of 20 and immigrated to this country when Jack secured a job with an American software company at the advent of the computer era. They have a daughter named Amy, who is 3 years older than my daughter Allison, aged 18. The resemblance between the girls is striking enough to mistake them for siblings. Jack held Amy dear, and I couldn't help but think this would be especially tough on her. Just then one of the EMTs approached me and inquired if I was Tracy's husband, confirming I accepted Tracy's purse, which she had left in the ambulance upon arriving at the hospital. Distancing myself from the tearful women, I took it in my left hand, expressing gratitude, and shook the EMT's hand with my right. As I began to loop the strap of the purse to tuck it away, I noticed something unusual. A bra nestled in the middle. Perplexed, I took a closer look and indeed found a bra tucked into the purse. Amidst the chaos of the women's wails when they emerged from the room, I hadn't really paid much attention to Tracy's appearance. It then struck me that she was, in fact, not wearing a bra. That struck me as odd, I thought to myself. I'm not sure how much longer we remained at the hospital with Chell before she decided it was time to leave. Amy was due to arrive from university in the morning, prompting Chell to prioritize getting some sleep. I drove Chell home and then took Tracy and myself back to our house. I planned to assist both women in retrieving their cars the following day, Chell's from the emergency room lot and Tracy's from her workplace lot. When we got home, Tracy didn't utter a word to me. She went straight to the main bathroom and took a shower. About 20 minutes later, she joined me in the family room, her eyes swollen and red from crying. Sitting on the sofa, she seemed distressed, so I left my lazy boy and joined her, embracing her tightly. Her breathing was uneven and I could feel her body convulsing with sobs. I wanted to inquire about the braless incident, especially since she was supposed to be working with Jack, but I couldn't bring myself to broach the subject that night. Instead, I silently held her for another 20 minutes until she expressed her fatigue and went to bed. It was midnight, so I decided to retire as well. The next morning, I took a personal day and after freshening up, I offered to drive Tracy to her office to retrieve her car. However, she appeared visibly shaken and struggled to speak coherently before composing herself. She requested that I take her to Chel's place instead, where they would arrange for a cab to take them to the office to collect some of Jacques' belongings. Tracy planned to then drive Chel to the hospital to handle paperwork and retrieve Jacques' personal effects. Despite offering my assistance, she declined. This worked out well for me because I needed to find the paramedics who came to help last night and clear up some details. After dropping Tracy off at Chel's house and getting a quick update on Chel's condition, I went straight to the hospital. I quickly got the names of the paramedics and found them at the fire station. They remembered me from last night. I talked to the one who gave me Tracy's purse, Gage, and asked about where the emergency started. He seemed unsure. My wife and Jacques were supposed to be picked up from the hotel, but you didn't, right? I asked, is that why you called me a name? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean anything by it, he said, sounding upset. We've had situations before where people in a hotel room weren't who they said they were, and we got blamed when things went wrong. Don't shoot the messenger. Take it easy, Gage. I'm not trying to blame you. I just want the truth. I had to look up Cuck, and I wasn't pleased with what I found. But that's not your problem. It becomes my problem if you lie about where you pick them up. We started at the West Side Hotel. Gage responded. They were about 15 minutes into the run when the guy collapsed and fell on your wife. She had to push him off to call 911. And in the meantime, she performed CPR. He was barely alive when we reached the ER. I possessed the truth requiring no further confirmation. Expressing gratitude to both, I departed, sensing their pitying gazes trailing me as I exited. Driving home, my thoughts swirled. Tracy had been intimately involved with Jacques when he nearly succumbed to a heart attack. How long had this deceit persisted? Then a revelation struck me like lightning. Allison and Amy's uncanny resemblance was no mere coincidence. They were siblings. Tracy had maintained this affair for at least 19 years. How had I remained oblivious for so long? I berated myself for naively trusting. Tracy and Jacques has often worked late, occasionally enjoyed nights out with friends, and embarked on business trips together. Had their liaisons occurred during these times? How could Chel have been unaware? Despite my occasional cluelessness, her obliviousness seemed improbable, especially considering the striking similarity between our daughters. Chel frequented Jacques' workplace, seemingly friendly with Tracy. How could Tracy betray her like this? Tracy's car was parked in the garage upon my arrival home. Finding her in the family room, sipping wine, my discontent must have been evident. What's troubling you, sweetie? She inquired innocently. Despite intending to remain composed, anger overcame me. How long have you been involved with Jacques? I demanded, my voice dripping with venom. He's Allison's father, isn't he? Tracy's wine glass shattered as she leaped it from the sofa in a frenzy. How could you utter such a vile accusation? She screamed, advancing toward me with intensive fury. If looks could kill, her glare would have ended me on the spot. I refused to yield. I stood firm in my conviction, meeting their gaze with determination. Though I lowered my voice to a near whisper, my words were sharp as I spat out. You can demand anything of me, but don't you dare lie and tell me I'm wrong. If you do, I'll make sure you regret it. In our 2 decades of marriage and even before, I had never spoken to my wife with such vulgarity or threatened her physically. Her reaction was one of pure shock. Her mouth hung open as if she wanted to retort, but the seriousness in my demeanor silenced her. She moved back instinctively, maybe feeling how serious I was. You know what you did, I said, watching her sit back on the sofa, not even noticing the wine stain on the carpet. The stress of your affair and the strain it put on him probably led to his death. Honestly, I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner considering how involved you were. She looked really upset, and it was clear I hit a nerve. She looked down at her hands, fidgeting for what felt like a long time, even though it was probably just 10 seconds. Oh my God, do you think I caused his death? She whispered. I wonder if Chel thinks that too. Why would Chel think that? Unless she knew about your relationship. Did she know? She knew and supported us almost from the start, Tracy murmured. Sometimes she even joined us, especially on business trips. She always believed it was right for me to find pleasure with Jacques for being such a crucial part of his business success. She was happy that I looked after him at the office while she took care of him at home. I sank into a seat, feeling dizzy and bewildered. So I was the odd one out, the only one kept in the dark. What about Allison? Allison has known for 4 years. She's okay with it. Oh damn, Allison knows and she's okay with it. Oh God, I exclaimed. But that's not what I meant. Does Chel know that Allison is Jacques' child? Chel knows, and she's fine with it. Amy knows too. Well, I hope you all had a good laugh at stupid old Rick's expense. Even my daughter, his daughter, I suppose, knew and didn't tell me. Fantastic. I stormed out of the house. I ended up driving to a nearby park and simply sitting there for a couple of hours. Tracy called my cell a couple of times, but I ignored the calls and let them go to voicemail. I just sat and reflected. Despite considering myself intelligent, I felt like a complete idiot when it came to Tracy. I never even considered the possibility of her cheating on me, blindly trusting her for nearly 19 years. I was utterly clueless. I couldn't help but wonder if there were others besides Jack. My mind was flooded with thoughts. As it began to darken, I left the park and headed home. Upon entering the house through the garage, I noticed a faint light in the kitchen above the table. Tracy was seated in her usual spot with a cup of tea. She offered me a cup, but I declined and opted for something stronger from my liquor cabinet. Pouring myself a scotch, I took a seat in my chair across from her. I can't even begin to express how sorry I am for hurting you, Tracy said softly, her gaze fixed on her hands. I need to hear the whole truth, I replied, my voice tinged with frustration. You need to explain how you could betray me while claiming to love me. You need to tell me if you ever truly loved me and respected me. Don't you dare question my love for you, ever. Tracy interjected urgently. I've always loved you, still do. It's just that I also loved Jack. Some people believe you can only love one person at a time. But I know that's not true because I love too. Save it. Just get on with it, I said, devoid of emotion. Tracy had joined Softel when the company was nearly a year old. Like many small businesses, the small team wore multiple hats, worked long hours, and formed close emotional bonds. It was an exhilarating period for her, and she often recounted the challenges during our dates. Our relationship had started about a year before she joined the company. As Softel grew and prospered, Tracy emerged as Jack's indispensable right-hand person. While Jack represented the company's dynamic face, Tracy essentially served as the cohesive force holding everything together. She excelled at juggling multiple tasks, and Jack increasingly relied on her as his indispensable partner. Interestingly, as Tracy and I grew closer outside of work, the bond between Tracy and Jack also deepened in the office. Tracy observed that her personal and professional lives seemed to be progressing in parallel, although Tracy and Jack maintained professionalism in front of their colleagues. Privately, they grew even more connected, engaging in discussions ranging from mundane topics to intimate matters like sex and politics. Tracy, at 24, was strikingly beautiful with an athletic physique and long blonde hair, while Jack is at 34, was a well-built man with long, wavy brown hair and a charming smile exuding an almost old-fashioned gallantry. Their first intimate encounter, Tracy recalled, happened naturally on an old sofa in Jack's office after a long day. Tracy confessed that she never felt guilty about being intimate with both me and Jack, even after I married her a year later. It wasn't merely physical desire, but rather a profound, loving connection, distinct yet comparable to what she and I shared. However, Tracy felt unable to disclose this aspect of her life to me due to my strong stance against infidelity. She cherished both relationships and couldn't bear to give up either. While I remained unaware of the affair, Shell learned about it from Jack approximately 2 months later. Realizing that the affair would persist, Jack felt compelled to be completely honest with his wife, who had recently given birth to their first child. According to Tracy, Jack conveyed to Chell that although Chell and Amy would always hold the most significant place in his heart, he desired to reserve a portion of his affection for Tracy. Subsequently, Chell extended an invitation to Tracy to spend a weekend with Jack and her. I recall Tracy leaving for the weekend, citing her mother's illness as a pretext. And following that weekend, she gave her approval to the affair. Years later, when Tracy became pregnant, it was Chell who comforted her anxiety and decided on the course of action if the child was indeed Jack's. Given that both Jack's and I had a plus blood, determining paternity was straightforward. Moreover, since I rarely spent time alone with both girls, any remarks about their resemblance were casually dismissed by either Chell or Tracy with a jest about my social life, thereby averting any suspicion. Tracy remarked that Chell regarded her almost as a younger sister and took pride in what she called Jack's little family. I sat in stunned silence as Tracy recounted her experiences without expressing any remorse for her actions, merely recalling events. Tracy stopped, waiting for me to say something. The only thing that came to mind was asking if she and Jack had ever taken a break when we were newly married and having sex almost every day. She looked embarrassed, avoiding my eyes before finally admitting they hadn't. She remembered, that time of my life was so exciting. I had 2 attractive men who loved and desired me, and I was always turned on. She talked about her hygiene routine on days when she was intimate with Jack, making sure she was clean but aware of the possibility of being with me afterward. She said she tried to minimize any overlap, but confessed she never let me touch her intimately after being with Jack. "You were quite considerate," I muttered. She thought about it and said, "It's strange, after all this time, I never really compared your performance in bed. Both of you were great lovers, caring, attentive, and similar in size. It wasn't about who was better in bed with Jack. It was just different." She admitted that she felt a bit relieved knowing her connection with Jack wasn't just about lust, but it hurt to find out she had feelings for him as well as for me. I always believed in monogamy, the idea of having one exclusive partner for each person. Even though I was her main person, she had feelings for someone else too. Tracy put her tea down and looked deeply into my eyes, as if trying to see into my soul. I thought about it. I didn't have an answer to her silent question, and I couldn't find any wise words to say. Tidying away my Dewar's bottle in the cupboard, I placed my glass in the sink before ascending the stairs to bed. The reason for this action escaped me, as I was certain I wouldn't find any rest that night. Approximately 5 minutes later, Tracy joined me in bed, nestling up against my back. I feigned sleep, preferring not to exchange even a simple good night. I rose at my customary 5 a.m., completed my usual morning routine, and set off for work. Tracy was still asleep when I departed, indicating she had no intention of going to Softville. Presumably, she and Chell will need to resolve the situation following Jack's departure. However, that's their concern. Clearly, I had my own issues to address. Work has always provided me solace during turbulent times, and I hope this pattern would persist. I work at Mayone Pharmaceuticals, where I serve as the Vice President of Sales. Despite being 45, I represent the new breed in the industry. With a background in chemistry, I possess a unique understanding of our products' manufacturing processes and functionalities, unlike many of my counterparts in sales leadership. In fact, I played a role in developing one of our successful products, Cock-Crazitol, a pill designed to reduce women's libido for those with excessive sexual desires. It's been a lucrative venture for us, and I've personally benefited from its success. I also earn a substantial salary, and combined with Tracy's income, we were living quite comfortably, a luxurious home in a fashionable neighborhood, 2 high-end cars, and fantastic vacations. Financially, neither of us will suffer after the divorce. There, I acknowledged it. The dreaded D word. I hadn't seriously considered it until that moment, perhaps because it seemed inevitable to me since the discovery of Tracy's infidelity. With Allison away at college and out of the house, there's really no compelling reason for us to remain together. Apart from the fact that Tracy broke my heart, this shouldn't be such a big issue. My boss, Arnold Kramer, and I have collaborated for 18 years. After spending 5 years as a chemist at a different pharmaceutical company, I met Arnie at an industry convention and we engaged in a conversation about various topics. He suggested I explore sales and subsequently offered me a position in his company. Intrigued by the challenge, I made the move. Arnie's evaluation of my abilities proved entirely accurate, and both of us have reaped significant rewards from it. Not only do we have a productive working relationship, but I've also discovered that he's a genuinely good person, and we've cultivated what I anticipate will be a lifelong friendship. Arnie has been married to his wife, Lauren, for approximately 30 years. He has 2 adult children and, 5 grandchildren. Despite being 52, he exudes the energy of someone much younger. He possesses a keen intellect and isn't hesitant to recruit other intelligent individuals to join his team. I like to believe I'm one of them. Arnie appeared genuinely concerned when I informed him of Tracy's infidelity and my decision to divorce her. He inquired if I was certain about her unfaithfulness, to which I confirmed. Without delving into specifics, he respected my need for time to process and plan. However, he gave me the contact details from Mayone's lawyer. Arnie values loyalty to those who do well for him and trusted the Mayone team, especially their divorce department, which dealt with wealthier clients. He said I could take all the time I needed, but I told him I'd only be away sometimes because the case seemed simple. We both wanted what was best for our daughter, Allison, and had our own pension plans, so splitting the money from selling the house would be easy. Wow, did I completely miss that? When I got home from work, Tracy had made dinner, my favorite, spaghetti supreme, and opened a good bottle of Merlot. Everything seemed so good that I didn't want to tell her that Jack was the wine expert. I preferred stronger drinks. It's hard to keep everything straight when you're juggling multiple relationships. Tracy kept up her usual cheerful chatter during dinner, pretending as if nothing had changed between us. I waited for about 10 minutes before cutting through the facade, finally uttering those dreaded 4 words. "We need to talk." "No, we don't," she snapped back almost immediately. I was taken aback by her response and her tone. I had discovered, and she had confessed to, a decades-long affair with her boss. She knew how strongly I felt about cheating. How could she expect me to forgive her? I was hoping we could discuss this like adults before I proceed with legal action, I said as calmly as possible. You can do whatever you want, but I won't give you a divorce, she said, sounding annoyed. The truth is, you love me and I love you, and I won't let you leave. I'll fight against it all the way. You're being silly and risking losing the best thing you've ever had just because your pride is hurt. I tried to respond, but she cut me off before I could. Before you found out about Shaq and me, did I ever give you a reason to doubt my love for you? Did I ever treat you badly? You got all the love you wanted from me, and I took care of you in every way, physically, mentally, emotionally. Aren't we each other's closest friends? If you hadn't found out by accident, you would have stayed deeply in love with me forever. You would have been none the wiser. Can't we return to that? No, because I did find out. Your love for me isn't as genuine as you claim because otherwise you wouldn't have given yourself to another man, both physically and emotionally. You knew it was wrong, so you kept it concealed from me. I don't consider 2 decades of deceit as love. It's bad enough that you've been involved with another man for 2 decades, but you confess to loving him as well. You've shared intimacy with him just as you have with me. How does that demonstrate love for me? Let's put aside the physical aspect for a moment, if that's even possible. Can't you see that every bit of love you gave him was stolen from me? I had more than enough love for both of you. Tracy yelled back at me. He understood that. But I knew you wouldn't, so I never told you. And now you're proving me right. He understood. I wasn't capable of understanding because I wouldn't have accepted you having another partner and quasi-husband. That's utter nonsense. I wasn't foolish enough to let you do that willingly, so you made the choice for yourself, solely for yourself. This was all about your desires, and can you fulfill them? And believe me, if I hadn't discovered it, I would have lived my life happily ignorant and the biggest fool. You could have engraved it on my damn tombstone. Here lies Rick Avondale, the world's happiest fool. He thought life was perfect, because he had no idea his wife had 2 husbands. The viewing and funeral took place 3 days later, on a Monday, but I didn't attend either. Instead, I carried on with my routine, heading to work like any other morning. Upon returning home, I found Tracy and Allison still in their funeral attire in the kitchen, although my daughter had come home from college for the occasion. When I approached her to offer a hug, she withdrew from my touch, turning away and softly crying, silently signaling for restraint. Typically, I would have respected the situation and backed off, but these circumstances were far from ordinary. Frustration bubbled within me, audible even as a growl under my breath. Gathering some essentials, I swiftly packed a bag and left without further ado. Tracy bombarded my phone with calls almost immediately after my departure, all of which I ignored. Allison, to her credit, didn't sugarcoat the situation. She had made her judgment, casting me as the villain in this drama, and seemed determined to make me suffer. In that moment it became painfully clear that she no longer considered me her father, neither biologically nor emotionally. It was a crushing realization. The following day I took some personal time to visit the bank and separate our accounts, closing joint credit cards and establishing new ones in my name alone. I also arranged a meeting with the lawyer, recommended by Arnie, squeezing in an appointment for Thursday. When I visited the lawyer on Thursday, I had been awake for 3 days straight. Ironically, his name was Mike Squelch, which didn't inspire much confidence in his legal prowess. Despite my exhaustion, I didn't think there was much to discuss. I provided him with a detailed account of the situation and expressed my desire to end the marriage swiftly, claiming my rightful share. Additionally, I insisted on pursuing child support from Jack's estate for our daughter. If she was no longer considered my responsibility, then her biological father should bear the financial burden. I informed Mike that I was done being taken advantage of. Mike seemed to agree with my plans, but he warned that if Tracy opposed the divorce, it could lead to mandatory counseling and prolonged legal battles. Unfazed, I instructed him to proceed. Tracy was served with divorce papers at her workplace, Softal. Judging by the taming, I assumed she received them at 10:07 a.m. His name was Mike Squelch, which didn't make me feel very confident about his legal skills. Even though I was tired, I didn't think there was much to talk about. I told him everything about what was happening and said I wanted to end the marriage quickly and get what I deserved. I also said I wanted child support from Jack's estate for our daughter. If she wasn't my responsibility anymore, then her real dad should pay for her. I told Mike I was tired of being taken advantage of. He seemed to agree with my plan, but he warned me that if Tracy didn't agree to the divorce, it could mean counseling and a long legal fight. I didn't care and told him to go ahead. Tracy got the divorce papers while she was at work at Softal. I guess she got them at 10:07 a.m. judging by her reaction, as just a minute later, our receptionist informed me of an angry call from Tracy on line 3. Throughout the week, I had deliberately ignored Tracy's calls and messages on my phone, directing the Mayon staff to divert her calls to my voicemail, a directive they diligently followed. However, I realized that avoiding her indefinitely was not feasible. Hence, I instructed Marlene, our head receptionist, to connect her calls directly to me upon contact. "You insufferable jerk." I promptly ended the call after her initial outburst. 15 seconds later, the second call came through. "Don't you dare hang up on me." I terminated the call once more, pondering how long it would take for her to understand the necessity of civility if she wished to communicate with me. The third call took a bit longer to materialize. When I answered, she spoke in a hushed tone, evidently struggling to maintain composure. "You've won this round. We need to have a conversation," she stated. "Marvelous," I responded with forced cheerfulness. "Contact my attorney, Mike Welch at X, to arrange a meeting with us. It might be beneficial for you to have your own attorney present as well. It could expedite matters." The appointment was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Until then, I stayed in a nearby motel, occasionally visiting my old house to mow the lawn and collect mail and some of my belongings. When Tracy saw me arrive at the house for the first time, she attempted to greet me as if I were her long-lost husband and hugged me in the driveway. I pushed her away and entered the house. "You didn't have to air our problems out in the driveway like that," she remarked. "If I'm such a jerk, why not just divorce me?" I replied dryly. The meeting with the lawyers took place on a Friday afternoon at 3. Being a gentleman, I let Tracy present her argument first, about loving me completely, but also keeping a place in her heart for Jacques. She argued that now that he was deceased, everything should revolve around me. "Are you willing to throw away 20 years of marriage over this?" she asked. "Do you really care so little about our love?" she asked. "No," I replied. "It's because I cared so much about our love that we have to end this marriage. You've had all my love, and you deceived me to get it. How can I not see this as breaking my trust, which is what marriage is built on? You knew what you were doing was wrong, but you still did it to get what you wanted, both physically and emotionally. But he knew about it and accepted it, and I was fooled. This divorce isn't because of me. It's because of your selfishness and betrayal. I would never have tolerated sharing you physically with another man. But sharing your love with another man crosses an even bigger line. It hurts more than if you had simply had a cheap affair with someone else. You loved him, slept with him, and even had his child. Just because I didn't know doesn't make it right. You both stole from me. It's fortunate he died of a heart attack that day, because if he hadn't, I would have shot him." Tracy let out a gasp as my final words hit her. Tears were already streaming down my face. "You realize throughout all of this, you never once apologized for cheating on me," I pressed on. "You said sorry for causing me pain, and maybe you're sorry for getting caught. But I don't believe you're truly remorseful for your actions. Rick, I believe we can salvage our relationship. Please, let's not go through with the divorcer," she pleaded. "Our relationship, Tracy, it was our marriage. There shouldn't have been your party and my part. It was supposed to be just us forever." Mike glanced at Tracy's lawyer and remarked, "I think we're finished here." Tracy's lawyer, a serious-looking middle-aged African-American woman, nodded solemnly and reached out her hand for Mike to shake. Over the next couple of weeks, we sorted out some small details, and 3 months later, our divorce was final. 2 days after the divorce was finalized, I told Mike to start legal action against Jack Estate. I wanted child support and money for college for Allison. Mike said it more formally. I might not have done this if Allison hadn't made it clear at the funeral that she didn't want anything to do with me anymore. After spending 18 years raising her like my own child, is this the thanks I get? But I guess Allison had 4 years to think about it after Tracy told her everything, and to her, I was just a fool. 14 years of being a real father wasted. So when Mike suggested making up for the lost respect with real money, exactly $1 million, I didn't mind. I liked Mike's idea. I anticipated a call from Chell once she was served, but instead it was Tracy on the line. Chell must have thought I'd take the news better coming from Tracy, but she was mistaken. Is this another way to retaliate against me? Are you facing financial difficulties? Tracy questioned when I answered. Well, greetings to you too, Mrs. Avondale. How thoughtful of you to call. I wasn't oblivious to the reason for her call. You do realize this makes you appear incredibly insensitive, don't you? She remarked. Do you realize I spent 18 years raising someone else's child while you, Chell and Jackie had a good laugh at my expense, and now that child thinks I'm nothing but a fool. I couldn't care less about your opinions. I ended the call without saying goodbye. I suppose Tracy must have conveyed my stance to Chell, along with my stubbornness when I believed I was right, because after initially attempting to negotiate through her lawyer, she ultimately sent me a check for the $1 million. As it turned out, a few months later, Chell could easily afford that million, as she sold Softel to a Japanese company for $8 million. With Jack out of the picture, it was likely a savvy business decision. That could have been the end of the story, but as the late newscaster Paul Harvey used to say, and now for the rest of the story. 2 days following the sale of Softel, $2 million was transferred into an account under my name in the Cayman Islands. This sum constituted my finder's fee for Nakatomi Laddie, successfully acquiring Softel within 9 months, as stipulated in a deal agreed upon by an unidentified Nakatomi attorney and myself. The terms of the agreement specified that regardless of my actual involvement, or how the acquisition transpired, as long as Nakatomi completed the purchase by a certain date, I would be entitled to the finder's fee. However, once that date passed, the deal became null and void. At this point, you may be curious about my role in the Softel deal. It's somewhat convoluted, but essentially I wasn't entirely forthcoming earlier in this narrative. While much of what I've recounted is rooted in reality, some elements were embellished. A performance on my part that could have rivaled an Academy Award-winning act, portraying myself as completely oblivious. Let me elaborate. Up until about a month before Jacques passed away, I was completely unaware of what was going on. Then, out of the blue, a Nakatomi lawyer approached me, seeking my assistance in negotiating a deal with Jacques for Softel. Why do you think I can help, apart from the fact that my wife is closely associated with Jacques? I asked, genuinely curious. The lawyer said, "We know you're smart and can handle the challenge. You can beat the man who's been fooling you for years and get the rewards." I was shocked by this. Tracy was cheating, and this Japanese person knew about it. It was unbelievable. Nakatomi had carefully looked into many companies, finding out everything. They knew a lot about Jacques, Tracy, Shell, and even their daughters. They guessed right that I would want to help them. But they needed my help quickly because they were looking at other software companies, and I had 9 months to act. Initially, they presented me with proof of Tracy's unfaithfulness. They provided photos, videos, phone records, travel receipts, everything. I had all the ammunition to expose both of them. Then they made me an offer. They dangled $2 million to assist them in wresting control of the company from Jacques. Frankly, I was already inclined to help without the financial incentive, but I kept that to myself. My priority was to strategize my actions and ensure the money would come to me post-divorce, avoiding any splitting since we reside in a no-fault state. However, I needed to compose myself to avoid revealing my hand prematurely. My initial, albeit fleeting, impulse was violent, waiting for their next rendezvous, breaking in and taking drastic measures. But the prospect of spending my life as Bubba's cellmate didn't sit well with me. So I opted to maintain composure, continuing to feign ignorance, a skill I'd honed for 2 decades already. I briefed Arnie on what I discovered about Tracy and Jacques, omitting the details of my source. We spent a late night at the plant, sipping Don Julio tequila and brainstorming solutions. After consuming about half the bottle, Arnie, with sincerity, remarked, "Isn't it ironic that the guy who invented cock crazy tall has his wife cheating on him? You should have slipped her some of that stuff, Rick." That's when it clicked for me, though I kept my revelation to myself given the circumstances. I shouldn't have given it to her. I mused silently. I should have slipped some of that stuff to him. Wait a moment. One action solves 2 problems. Cristal has a big advantage. It doesn't have many side effects like other big medicines do. There's only one problem. Men shouldn't take it at all, as long as they follow the prescription correctly. It's good for lowering a woman's sex drive, but for some reason, it raises men's blood pressure a lot and can cause a heart attack. All I needed to do was somehow get it to Jacques. Jack and I both play golf at the same course sometimes, along with 2 other guys. I arranged for us to play together the next Saturday and planned to stop at the restaurant for lunch after the first 9 holes. We had a good time playing the first 9 holes and then took a long break for lunch and drinks before playing the second 9. Now bear in mind I have a knack for salesmanship. So, while we were casually dining and having drinks, I casually remarked to Jacques, "You doing all right, buddy? You seem a bit fatigued." Jacques, being a decade older than the rest of us, was aware of the age gap, and my question clearly got to him. I could see him pondering when I suggested we could push back our tea time by 30 minutes to allow him some extra rest. "Nah, just a tad tired, but no need to change plans for me. I'll manage," he replied. Truth be told, I didn't think he appeared tired at all, but I decided to play on his insecurities about being the elder in the group. "I have just the thing for you," I said, producing a small bag of unmarked white pills from my pocket. "Something I keep for myself, takes the edge off and keeps me going smoothly through the day." I passed Jack the small bag containing 5 pills. "Take one of these over the next few days. If you enjoy them, I can get you more next time we go golfing," I offered. Jack took 1 pill from the bag, swallowed it and washed it down with bourbon on the rocks. He pounded his chest like a monkey and let out a small Tarzan-like yell. "Let's go, guys. I'm feeling energized," he exclaimed cheerfully. In reality, within a short time, he probably did feel the effects of the pill. An increase in blood pressure can give you a boost, which is why athletes focus on getting pumped up for their games. However, too much of a good thing. For those wondering why I gave him a small bag instead of a pill bottle or box, I wanted him to throw away the bag once he finished the pills, so it wouldn't be found if someone searched his pockets later on Wednesday night. Those 5 pills were meant to last until Wednesday, when Jack and Tracy usually met up. When a man's blood pressure is already high from being with someone other than his wife, and he takes medication that raises blood pressure, it's a recipe for a heart attack, which could be deadly. But since it would look like a regular heart attack, and our city's crime investigation unit doesn't have many resources, they wouldn't look into it unless something seemed odd. So, I acted like the betrayed husband, just like I did when I first found out about the affair a month ago. I have to admit, even I surprised myself with how well I acted. 2 days after I got the money in my account and moved it somewhere else, I took Arnie and his spouse out to a fancy dinner. I acted like it was to thank Arnie for being a great leader and supporting me during tough times, but really, it was to thank him for unknowingly helping me get revenge. With Jack was out of the picture in both women's lives, the connection between Tracy and Chell noticeably chilled, particularly as Chell had time to reflect on Jack passing away practically in Tracy's embrace. I heard that Chell was particularly irked by Tracy's failure to sway me into dropping the lawsuit against the estate for overdue child support, although Chell seemed unaware that Tracy wouldn't have benefited from that money due to our divorce. Shortly after Chell settled my support payments, she terminated Tracy's employment. Word also spread within the Nakatomi circles about the affair between Jack and Tracy, effectively ruining Tracy's career in business administration. Apparently, it's not advantageous for one's career when the boss dies while in bed with you, or so I've been told. Don't mourn too heavily for Tracy, though. She emerged from the situation with a net worth of approximately $1 million, so she won't be struggling financially for some time. Additionally, she'll be in a position to support her daughter. Speaking of whom, Allison made it abundantly clear that she no longer wanted any involvement with me after Jack passed away, rejecting me not just once, but on multiple occasions. I suppose that's the outcome of all the years I spent raising her, providing for her, coaching her soccer teams, and attending all her dance recitals. Well, I won't make that mistake again. As for me, I think I'm doing pretty well for someone who lost their life partner after 20 years. It took me a while, but I started dating again. But I'm not sure if I'll ever fully trust another woman, and I'm not sure if I'll ever find someone like Tracy again. But I don't have any responsibilities now. I have about $5 million, so I'm semi-retired and only work on special projects for myself. Maybe one day I'll invent a pill that helps husbands know if their wife is cheating. That would be really helpful for people. Second story, I think I saw ex-partner Reddit throwaway account. First time posting. I have been cheated by ex-partner who work overseas since 2016. Unaware but felt things. Tried to ask his BS co-workers but turned blind eyes and deaf ears. In December 2023, some colleagues revealed that my ex-partner had been cheating on me since 2016. We have 2 teenagers, a 15-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy, so I tried to fix things and offered to work on our marriage. But even though I found out about the cheating and he still hadn't unblocked me on social media, things kept getting worse until last week. He was the one who gave up, angrily saying, "I'm done. Enough. You and the kids leave me alone. I have a lot on my mind. I don't care if your family will hate me." There. Now while scrolling I bumped to his account. He's now asking for advice. NYAP has 2 kids with different fathers and known as a homewrecker since before ex-partner has been in relationship with other family man. I'm also aware that he had a fling in his workplace, a very close friend of a P. I feel I have been painted as a bad person by him on his colleagues. That's why nobody sympathizes with me. They kept it that long. 8 years, wow. Thanks for joining us on this chapter of Relation Tales. If you were moved by these stories, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Don't miss out on the upcoming emotional rollercoaster of relationships. Your support means the world, and we can't wait to share